Hayom Yom, a new day, the 19th of Av. So this Hayom Yom, I've always wondered, and I still don't know the answer, exactly what this is here for. But, and you may share my wonderment as we look at this, it's an instruction on how to utilize 4 pairs of tefillin. Now, in Lubavitch, well, most of the world uses 1 pair of tefillin, Rashi's version. In Lubavitch, we're fairly familiar with Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, right? These are just orders and writings of the Parshas according to the opinion of these various Chachamim, Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. But there are 2 others also. Shemisha Rabbah is one, and the Ravid is another. There are 4 different versions, slightly different, of the tefillin. And if you're going to utilize all 4, here's how. 1, put on the Rashi hand and head, right? That's just what most men do. Tefillin before saying the chapter Ezehu Mekaman in the Siddur, and daven in them until after Tzadikim, out Tzaddik, until the end of the davening. Then, now here's 2 that we don't do. Remove the Rashi tefillin from the head and put on without a brucha the Shemisha Rabbah tefillin for the head. Then recite again Shema until Emes. Then recite the daily portion of Tillim, as the Tillim is divided into the days of the month. And the meticulous, the ones who were very meticulous, would study those chapters with the commentaries of Rashi and Metsudot. Metsudot is a commentary on Tillim. Then put on without a brucha Rabbeinu Tam, right, which we do, arm, head, and arm. Recite Shema until the Emet, and then chapters Kaddish, which we do, and the 6 remembrances printed in the Siddur, which we do. Then study a chapter of Mishnah, which I don't know how many people do, each according to his comprehension, with those Rabbeinu Tam tefillin on. Then remove the Rabbeinu Tam tefillin from the head, only the head, and put on the Ravid tefillin for the head. So the Shemisha Rabbah and the Ravid were only using the head tefillin. And put on the Ravid without a bracha, recite Shema until Emet, as we did with Rabbeinu Tam, and then study the day's portion of Chumash with the commentary of Rashi, and on Sunday, the first parsha until Sheni in the Chumash, and Monday the second parsha, etc. That's how we do the parshas of the week in the as we're dressed in the tefillin of the Ravid. As I say, I don't know anyone who does this, but that doesn't mean people don't. But usually we can say, most of the time, that in some way, this Hayom Yom has to be a teaching for everybody, otherwise it wouldn't be an Hayom Yom. In any case, lessons in Tanya. We're starting a new letter from the Alter Rebbe, letter 6 on page 104. And in Likutei Amorim, on page 218. So this is a letter about the connection between Rachamim Rabim, great mercy, and emes, and truth. So to understand that connection, we're going to first, in the first part of this letter, delve into what is Rachamim Rabim, great mercy. We start with a pasuk. The pasuk in Yeshayahu, in Isaiah, Zarei Tzedakah Schar Emes. In Mishle. Zarei Tzedakah in Proverbs. Zarei Tzedakah Schar Emes. The pasuk says, one plants righteousness. The reward of planting righteousness, in other words, what you reap, is truth. So truth is derivative from emes. Okay, from tzedakah. Truth, emes, is derivative from tzedakah. Okay, Pirush, what does that mean? First, we're going to explore tzedakah and how it's in the union of Rahmanas, having mercy on somebody. Pirush, the reward for planting righteousness He midas ha'emes, as I said. It's the reward of tzedakah is truth. Ukasiv, now we have a pasuk that says, Titen emes leYankov. God gives truth to Yaakov. The Shifra de Kuchibricho Misad Navi, and the Navi who said this is praising Hashem. As Zohar says, Pirish explains, Shakodesh Baruch Hu hanoisoin midas emes leYankov. He gave the attribute of truth, sort of as a gift or as a result. He gave that to Yaakov. The Alter Rebbe asks the question. We need to understand. Yaakov had no truth until Hashem gave it to him from above. Of course he had truth. I mean, he was third in line of the fathers who inherited the truth from Noah, who inherited the truth all the way back to Adam Harishon. So he certainly had the truth. And so what does it mean that Hashem gave him truth? That's the Alter Rebbe's question. We're going to see that truth is somehow, whatever truth he had, there's a level of truth that is above that, deeper than that, which is a gift. And it's connected with having Rachmanis on people. It's connected with tzedakah. This is known, Midas Yaakov hu Midas Rachmanis, his natural midah, the one that he's naturally equipped with, and which he stands for, is the midah of Rachmanis. If you look at the three Avos, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they stand for Avram is Chesed. Chesed gives, and we remember learning in the Bible about Avram and Sarah's great Chesed. They set up a tent in the desert and provided food to everybody. They were the epitome of Chesed. Yitzchak was the epitome of Gevurah. He stayed by himself. Avram and Sarah went to people. They were original shluchim. And Yitzchak, although he was a shliach also, but he was a different kind of shliach. He stayed, but people came to him. He stayed in his tent. And Yaakov, so that's Chesed on the right, Gevurah on the left in the Sfiros. And the middle is the third, which is Rachmanis, right? So he was the midah of Rachmanis. So all of us, it says that we have all of us an inheritance from our fathers and our mothers. So we all have inherited in what I first heard from Simon Jacobson, he calls the spiritual DNA. In our spiritual DNA, we have the kindness of Avram, the pachad and the gevurah of Yaakov, and we have the Rachmanis of the gevurah of Yitzchak and the Rachmanis of Yaakov. And see, we have that, and we have that to use in our avodah. The avodah Hashem b'midas Rachmanis. What's the avodah of serving Hashem with the midah of Rachmanis? What does that mean? This comes, the midah of having compassion or pity comes from arousing in oneself great mercy in the heart of a person on the spark of God, which is within each and every one of us, and how far we are away from the face of Hashem, from the intimate, from the source of Hashem. When we walk literally in the darkness of the vanities of this world. So our distance from Hashem is not so much to be thought of as a physical distance, because in the spirit, there's no physical distance. In spirit, there is no physical, so there's no physical distance. It's a psychological distance. It's a distance in the way we behave, a distance in behavior, in that because we're walking in the chayshech of this world, the darkness of this world, we can be consumed with and diverted from our innate kedusha, our innate holiness, by the vanities of this world. So that's walking in darkness. The hasaydas rachmanis and the arousal of mercy, then, therefore, Rahmanis we're going to have on the spark of God that has been brought into the darkness of the vanity of this world. By we have to reflect on something in order to free ourselves from the natural bondedness that comes from just being a physical item in a physical world. We have to use our hisbaininus, our contemplative capabilities, the hadas, and our internalization of that contemplation, the gedulas Hashem, as we contemplate and internalize in our minds the greatness of Hashem. And how do we think? One way of thinking about God's greatness is as follows: how it is that even the upper worlds, which are upper meaning closer to God's essence, more bonded openly with God's essence, less darkness, the upper worlds, higher and higher and higher in cases, they go without end, up and up and up, meaning deeper and deeper, are also kalei mamish chashivi, are considered like nothing, kameha, in front of him. He calls shefum b'chayusum, because all of the flow which comes from godliness, even at the origin of that flow in the world of Atzilus, eino rak miziva ora me'ois echad, it's only a ray of light, a ray and an irradiation of one letter, the Shema Yisborah, from God's name. As we learned at length in the last letter of Tanya, each and every creation, everything that's created, including the most deeply rooted spiritual worlds, are created with his name. He creates with his letters. And we did this without going into it now at length, just like the metaphor, just like we bring forth from ourselves internally to an outside world through speech, then through action. And that speech is with letters. So the metaphor of letters is the metaphor of creation. And creation is coming just from the letters of God's name. Even the name Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, the Shem HaMafurish, which is or Shem HaEtzem, it's sometimes called the Etzem, it's just the name of the Etzem, of the essence. It's not the essence. So even the highest worlds are in that sense nothing compared to him himself, because they're just coming from letters of his name. Yisborach, Mishma Yisborach, from his blessed name. Kamaimer, as the sages, as we have said, excuse me, B'Yud Nivra Olam Haba, right? In the Yud Ke Vav Ke, the Yud he created Olam Haba. We had this in the last letter, and with the He he created Olam Hazeh, this world. So these are just letters from his mouth. So all the worlds are nothing, small, minutiae, compared to God himself. Second line on the top of page, Kuf Yud. Through this ray, this radiation, which is a flow of vitality from God's blessed name, to enliven the upper worlds and the lower worlds. There's a big difference in quality, right? Between the upper worlds and the lower worlds. We are created with the He, and we pointed out with the second He of God's name. And the upper worlds, where there are four letters, each corresponding to the four worlds. The latter, the lower being Asiya. And then we have the Vav, which is Yetzirah, and then Bria and Atzilus, right? So we're created from, so all worlds are nothing compared to him. So you might say, how much more so is this world nothing compared to him, right? So this world is a garnished from this perspective. This is a perspective. We know this world is everything, in the sense that this is where the God's target is down here below. This is where he wants a dwelling place. But from the perspective of the vastness of creation, this world is the darkest. It's the most tzimtzum. It's this, and in that sense, experiences itself as the most far, as a result of which one can get trapped into, or at least involved with, the hevle oilam, the vanities of this world. And also all the changes of details in each and every world, each and every world, all comes from the different combinations of letters. And I'm not going to go into this now because we spent a good amount of time on it. All the infinite combinations, permutations of letters and gematrias and transformations, that brings about all the myriad diversity of all the worlds through the changes in the letters. And also the change in letters brings about changes not just in the stuff of the worlds, but also, which is the notion of place, the stuff, the location, and the shape of things, but also in time, in in past, present, and future. These are the two dimensions of creation, time and space. And that comes through the change orders of letters. B'shini kol hakoiros, and all the differences of various events, and the chilufis manim, and the changes of time, fall, spring, winter, summer, or various moods of the day, times of the day. Hakol mishini sirufi oisis, everything comes, and I'll put in the word only from the combinations of letters. And these this is the way God's life force is drawn into the world from all of his 6 midos. 6 here refers to the 4 dimensions, north, south, east, and west, and then the 7 heavens and the earth, the vertical. The 6 midos to the vertical, from Chesed down to Yesod, and then Malchus is the bottom plane from which all 4 directions come as well. So all of time and place is just from letters. He gives us a reference back in the first part of Tanya. This is getting to a definition and understanding of what's Rachmanis, what's mercy. What does it mean to have compassion and pity? So we're on our way. Because in relation to God's essence, Yisborach, his blessed essence, it's written, Kasiv, Ani Hashem lo shenisi. God's essence doesn't change at all. The pasuk tells us, I am Hashem, I don't change. Whether we're talking about the changes that occur in the descent of worlds from high to low, the vertical, ad lamata mata, till we get down to here below. Just as God himself is found in the top level of worlds, he is equally found down here in the top in terms of his presence. Now, it says that he's motzo, he's found, meaning he's here. Whether we find him or not is of much more difficulty down here below than it is up above, because here there's a maximum concealment. But he is here. But he's more revealed up there for sure than he is revealed down here. As also written in Likutei Morim Chelek Aleph, Perek Nun Aleph. Ubein b'bechinas shuni hazman, that's in place, right? His presence in place is much more present up there than down here. Similarly, time. Just as Hashem was alone and singular before the 6 days of creation, he is still singular and alone. After the creation, because the creation is just from letters of his mouth. We'll use the mashal. I'm speaking now, right? I'm not lessening myself. In other words, when these words that come out of my mouth don't detract from me, when I walk away or close my mouth, I'm not less than I was before. I'm the same as I was before. So similarly, God hasn't changed in time either. The fact that he's created past, present, and future is not a change by him. So he's the same as he was before the creation and after the creation. The Hainu, because Mishum, because everything from that perspective, from this perspective of God himself, is considered like nothing, mamish like nothing, in relation to him himself. It's like one letter coming out of the mouth of a person. Even one letter in his thought. In relation to the generality of the soul. So here the mashal is, the soul is the life force, and it diminishes itself in various ways. The inner dimension of the soul's diminishment is thought, and another more external diminishment of the soul's expression, his speech, but the soul is still the soul. So this letter of thought and this letter of speech is just like one letter, this one in regard to the general soul. Nefesh hasiklis, this is just talking about the intellectual part of the soul, which gives rise to thought and speech. Yatzmusa, and of course, that little letter of thought or letter of speech is like nothing compared to the essence of the soul. Al-Derek Mashal, comparing the soul to being the life-driving energy of everything, like God is the life-driving energy of everything entirely. So this is a mashal, a shachis is a ozin to it, that we can understand a bit comparatively and metaphorically between the chayas in our neshama and one letter of speech to God himself and the letters of creation. In truth, there is nothing which is comparable to him. Kasi, that's what's written. That's what's written in Tehillim. There's nothing comparable to you. Is written in another place. Again, Lakuti Amorim Chelik Beis, it says Shayikad V'Emuna Peretes. Ayin Shom, look over there. Remind ourselves about all of this. And this is what it says. We say this in the Shabbos davening. Hamelech Hamarimim Levade Ma'oz. We call Hashem the King, who is lifted up, exalted, they say, I think in English, alone, Me'oz, from then. From then, when? Then, primordial. Pirish, which means, just like from then, meaning before the creation, that he alone was and is. So the same is now. Who Meremon, he's exalted. He is one then, he was one then, and he is still one now. Nothing has touched his singularity. There is no duality. Everything duality itself comes from the letters, the midos, chesed on the right, gevura on the left, chachma on the right, the seichel parts, bina on the left. But those are all just expressions of that come from, that embedded singularity. That's another phrase we learned that we say in the davening. He's lifted up from the days of the world. In other words, from time as well as place. He's lifted up and over and beyond because he is the creator of time. Which time is referred to poetically in the davening as the days of the world. Because the life force of all the days of the world, meaning of time itself, only comes from God's Melech. Hashem Melech, Hashem Molech, Hashem Yimloch, right? There's a song about that. I forget who sings it. That's a very popular song in the Jewish world. Hashem Melech, he is king. Hashem Molech, he was king. Hashem Yimloch, he will be king. That's an indication to time. Time and place both come from the sphere of Malchus. Malchus is written in another place. Therefore, now we're back to our point. This was a long. Therefore, a point is about Rahmanis, right? I said that we're talking about Rahmanis, having mercy, having pity, have compassion. So therefore, it's a great Rahmanis Gedola. It's a great, great pity. And one should have compassion very much. Me'oid, me'oid, al hanitzus, on this little spark, hashoichen beguf, which dwells in our body, and this is also the body of the worlds at large. Which we're realizing how small it is and how nothing it is. We should have great compassion on it, on its lowness, on its smallness. But now coming back to us each and our why we can make this easy, this comparison between the body and Hashem, is because that we're a human. It's a human being, an Adam, is called an olam katan, a small world. We're made in the image of God. So our small world is like the big world. And just like the big world, all the way up to Atzilus, is nothing compared to him. So the spark of God that's within us, we have to have compassion on its so-called distance, how nothing it is in relation to the life force which is embedded within us. That life force itself, which is embedded within us, is nothing compared to God himself. It's just some combination of simple letters, so to speak, that come from his mouth. So let's go again. Therefore, Rahmanas Gedolah, it's a great mercy, a great compassion, ma'oid that we should have on the nitzutz, the spark, hashoichem beguf, which dwells within the body, in this choshek va'oifel, in this darkness and gloom, which the Zohar calls this darkness and gloom, the bottom of the Simsum, right? Olam hazeh hagashmi, the Zohar calls mishke dechivya, the skin of the snake. Ha'ola lekabel tuma, which is able to receive tuma, because it's so dark down here. Will his goyal, and to indulge itself, or to be revealed, it says, this tuma can be revealed, b'chol ha'taivas, and all kinds of ungodly, I'm putting in the word ungodly, taivas, and desires. Rahman al-Hasan, Hashem should have pity on us. And that's the compassion we should have on the spark of God that's been invested in us and put into a world where it's designed, this world, to lead us into, because the world is a world that's created through Tzimtzum, so therefore there is a darkness, and we're in the darkness, and it's very, well, reasonable, I'll put that in quote, reasonable that we should become and drawn to that darkness and even mistake that darkness for life, like the skin of the snake. Like, there's a metaphor that's, I don't know where it's from, but I caught it somewhere, that the time, in terms of time that we're in, which is the time right before Mashiach, where everything, according to all the prophets, gets very wild and confused before the time of Mashiach. So there's a metaphor, it's like the death rattle of the snake. The rattlesnake, apparently, right before it dies, it lifts itself up and gives a huge rattle, right? So we're in that world which the Zohar calls the skin of the snake, in the darkness, where we're subject to, which our poor spark of God, this nitzutz elokis, the chelik elokam emal, the part of God we have, is subject to all kinds of taivas, Rahman al-Islam. And we would be drunk, we would be sunk into them and overcome by them, were it not for from the fact that Hashem shields us from them. The fact that there is a nefesh elokis which is active, whether we're conscious of it or not, which provides salvation in the form of things which you might not think of salvation, like guilt, feeling bad about doing something when you know it's not what the Torah wants you to do. That feeling of feeling bad and reluctance to do it is Hashem's protecting you while we're down here in this dark pit. So Hashem gives us strength, and he gives us power to battle with the body. And now we're not talking about the body per se, with the body's attraction, natural attraction, because it's in the world of tzimtzum, of great contraction, to battle with, to shield us and to save us from the taivas of this world. Hashem oiz lamo yiten, right? It's a pasuk. Hashem oiz, he gives strength to his people. And it says, Ein oiz ela Torah. There's no strength except Torah. This is the great gift of Torah that he's had, that we're given. We're given an instruction book about what the right thing is to do. And we have a nefesh elokis inside of us to whom that speaks. And when that we allow, and through our thinking and straightening our brain out, allow that teaching of Torah to flow through down into the deep reaches of our nefesh elokis, then we can get an energetic to combat and ultimately to overcome this darkness and these taivas, and to create a victory. And this is written, he, God, is the Lord of our strength, right? He gives us this strength. He's Magen Yeshenu. He's the shield of salvation. And that is the end of today's Tanya. So today's Tanya it's a prelude to understanding, giving strength to remember, you plant tzedakah, which is righteousness, which is tzedakah is compassion, We've also translated it as pity. If you do acts of compassion, have compassion ultimately on the nefesh elokis, this godly soul which is trapped in the darkness of this world, have compassion on it, zoreya sedakas, by working it, planting it, so then you will be able to, and this is the next part, to reveal, even though we have been given the Torah, you'll be able to reveal a deep, deep emes. You will get a gift. This is what he's going to tell us tomorrow, that through having compassion on your nefesh elokis and acting in a way where you know that it's trapped in gullus, and you work on that to free it through your occupation in Torah and mitzvahs and your contemplation and meditation, you will be given a gift of truth, which is much deeper than any truth that you've had so far. And that will be it will solve the problem of, yeah, Yaakov had truth before, he had an inheritance, but remember the story of Jacob? All full of trials and tribulations with Lavan. And through that, he came on to a level of emes, a level of emes which he couldn't have reached and didn't reach before. And that's tomorrow's part. How compassion on your nitzos and struggling with that to reveal it brings forth an emes that wasn't revealed before. And we'll get into that half of it tomorrow. Okay. Any issues, questions, comments, observations, reflections? Then we have to go right away to the takeaway. So what? No so what's either? Sunday morning? Yes, Aviva, something.
Takeaway is...
Yeah, your volume, speak up a little, your volume's kind of low.
My takeaway is just keep your nose in the book. Keep your nose in the book. You know.
That's an old Moshe Yes line. You remember the song?
What? No, I
it's
don't.
It's a cute line. Why do Jews have big noses? To keep them in the 5 books of Moses.
Okay. Yeah, right. I mean, how else could you stay sane in today's world?
Right.
Unless you do that.
Get your head straight. Right? That's the principle of Tanya. Maya Shalat. Get your head straight. If you get your head straight and deepen your thought in it, it'll change your heart. It'll touch your heart and it will awaken. That's the whole first part of Tanya. It will awaken the sleeping giant, the Nefesh Elokis. Okay, like that. That's good. I'll give you one that comes to mind. That I've mentioned this before. I saw this hanging out on a big sheet, a white sheet in Brooklyn on the side of a big multifamily building in one of the projects. It was a quote, and I've quoted this before, you may remember this, in the name of Mahatma Gandhi. And the quote goes as follows: the only way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. So compassion and pity on someone who has less than you, and the nefesh elokis, which is just a little bit compared to God, will bring you to finding yourself, which is finding nefesh elokis. Again, tzedakah, tzedakah, tzedakah. I think the whole book is about tzedakah now that we're learning it. It's amazing. All right, then. Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow. See you again. Bye-bye.